everyone, it's Lizzie, and today I'm going to be reviewing Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. This book was published on the 7th of April in 2015, and at the end of 2015 it was also nominated for a Goodreads Choice Award for Best YA Fiction. Because of this nomination, this is how I learned about the book, because so many people were leaving amazing reviews and voting for it. So in November I shelved this book to be read, but I didn't actually get around to reading it until March of 2017. And I think this is because the blurb didn't sound that appealing to me. It's kind of funny because now reading it, I'm not really sure why it put me off. On my first read through, I actually only rated this 3.5 stars. Unfortunately, I didn't even leave a review to let myself know why, because I'm quite a generous rater. I think that I don't tend to rate things under 3 stars unless I really didn't like it. So 3.5 stars was quite low for me, and I'm really annoyed that I didn't leave any kind of indication as to why. And because of that, I wanted to reread it, so I have just reread it in March of 2018, which is this month right now, and I completely loved it. So I don't know why. If you don't know anything about this book, it revolves around the main character Simon Spear, who is a 16-year-old junior in high school. He has some really great friends and a close-knit family. The only drama in his life is in the school musical, Oliver. That is until he doesn't sign out of his private email account that he was logged into from the school library. Unfortunately for Simon, someone sees those emails and then starts to use them to blackmail him. The biggest problem here isn't the fact that Simon hasn't come out yet, because he thinks the important people in his life will still accept him. He just hasn't got around to doing it yet. No, the real problem here is the recipient of those emails' privacy being compromised. The recipient being Blue, who is the most confusing and adorable guy Simon has never met. The relationships in this book are amazing, specifically the family ones. The parents together or separately with Simon, Simon and his sisters, and then the whole family unit together are just wonderful. The friendship dynamics are so well done. You get a sense of each of them individually, like they're not just in the background and fillers for Simon's universe. I loved the musical element in this story, and I also love that it remained an element rather than becoming the focus, which is always a risk when there's something that takes up so much of the character's time, but it remained an element, so I appreciated that. Simon as a character is so funny and relatable and just wonderful all over. Simon and Blue, their emails are so well written. I fell in love with them through their emails. Their connection is just so beautiful, and their back and forth they have, it just works so well. I also love that this relationship takes place on the internet, sorry, because I think that social media and the internet just takes up so much of our lives these days, and it's kind of a shame when reading young adult fiction in particular that you don't really see it incorporated so much. So when it is, and it's done so well like this, it's just really cool. And one of the things that I absolutely loved about this book, that might seem kind of minor but is a big deal for me, is that the story continued after the climax of the book. So often I read amazing books and I'll write it in my review that I loved this book so much, but I would have really loved to have had an extra chapter or even a few pages after the climax and resolution instead of it just ending, because that makes it fall flat for me. But in Simon, the climax of the book hits and the story continues. And it's so nice to see that it's not just like, oh cool, climax resolution, that's the end of your story, it's all done and dusted. It kept going, and I just really appreciated and loved that so much. I guess this is like a little pro because it was just a really relatable part for me, that Simon mentions that everyone should come out as straight. Like, it shouldn't just have to be if you're not straight. Straight shouldn't be the normal. And so often I have seriously considered making a coming out video and coming out as straight, but then I think it could be received negatively. But then to read that Becky Albertalli has had this same kind of idea and thrown it out there through Simon has just been really cool, because why the bloody hell is straight the normal? That's always annoyed me. So I just thought that was really cool. Also the fact that Simon says something along the lines of part of the reason he hasn't come out yet is because He doesn't want it to be a big deal. He doesn't think it should be a big deal. And his family make a big deal over the littlest of things. Like when he started to drink coffee, it was a big deal in his family. And I get that. I remember more so when I was a teenager that whenever I changed something about myself, no matter how small, if someone noticed it, I'd be like, yeah, that's something I do now. Cool. All right, can we forget that this happened now and it's something that I've always done? Or okay. I like finding those little things that make me just go, yeah, same, in a book. So before I start listing my cons, I'm just gonna have to say as a disclaimer, these cons are quite nitpicky. Because I liked this book so much, it feels like I wasn't trying to find things wrong with it, but maybe I kind of was, but it was as I was reading, not as I'm trying to write up my review. So these are the things that stood out to me as cons, and yes, they are very minor, but you should know that before I start talking about them. So there are a couple of places throughout the book that had confusing language for me, and I think that this is an editing thing because my mind imagines how the characters are and look and what their environment and atmosphere is like. I notice them. So it would be little things like someone was sitting on the couch and then the next part of conversation they were on the floor and there was no in between as to how they got there, and I'd be like, oh wait a second, what? And so I'd go back and read and try and figure out how that happened. So for example, on page 24 there is a part where Simon has got his lunch and they're in the cafeteria and he's making his way to his lunch table, and it's written as, but Martin intercepts me on the way back from the lunch line. And to me, intercept means he's standing and has physically put himself between Simon and his lunch table, so he has intercepted him. And at the end of their conversation, as Simon goes to walk away, it says, already we're squeezing 2 extra chairs into a 6-person table. Yeah, well, Martin tilts back in his chair and looks up at the ceiling. So now he's in a chair, and it hasn't said in that text in between that he's stood up and then sat down. But to me, as I said, if you're intercepting someone, you are going to physically put yourself in their path to intercept them. But he can't do that if he's sitting down. If he was sitting down and intercepted, he would have had to have called out to him. As I said, really minor, but that's a thing that pulled me up a couple of times. And there's another part further on in the book, but I won't talk about that because that will give away a spoiler. This is another language thing. Throughout the book, they have mentioned Tumblr because that is how Simon and Blue meet, on Tumblr. However, it's written as the Tumblr, and it's not the Tumblr. And when I refer to Tumblr, I literally refer to it as I was on Tumblr last night scrolling for days. I don't ever say I saw her on the Tumblr, but that's how it's used. Occasionally they will say on the Creekwood Tumblr, which is their school's Tumblr, but it's not always referred to that way. Again, it's really minor, and I apologize if people do refer to Tumblr as the Tumblr. I don't know about these people, so that was just a bit annoying. So I guess my one non-nitpicky con of this book is that there is a romantic conflict with Simon and another person, and I feel like it really could have gone somewhere and it would have been so cute and lovely. But I'm not mad that it didn't happen. I'm kind of sad that it didn't happen because it would have been cool and lovely, but I'm not mad because this book is focused on Simon and Blue's relationship, and I am invested in their relationship. The way it's portrayed through their emails and the connection they have, I would have been mad if that didn't progress in some way. And so I'm glad that it was kind of a distraction and not a sidetrack or a complete detour. But I'm a little bit sad about it, which is why it's a con. One thing about me when I'm reading books is that I will always make a point of reading the acknowledgements. If for some reason I have not been able to read them because I've pulled up at my station and I have to close the book just as I finish the story part, I will make a point of going back and reading the acknowledgements because I like to acknowledge the acknowledgements. And I really liked Becky Albertalli's in Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda because they were so thorough and heartfelt, and I really liked them, and I just thought I'd say, hey, I'm acknowledging your acknowledgements. They were nice. Overall, this book just made me so happy, which is still why I'm confused at my low rating initially. I read a lot on the train and I just felt myself smiling the whole time. When I arrived at my station and put my book away, my cheeks were hurting from how much I was smiling. So I just completely loved this book. I thought it was happy and welcoming and homely, and it was just So, so lovely. As for my new rating of this book, as I've said, the 3.5 stars completely just baffles me now, and I really wish I knew why. But my new rating for this book is in fact 5 stars. It might seem overly generous, but as I said, it just made me so happy, and I would definitely read this book again for the 3rd time, and I'm sure I would love it just as much. So 5 stars. My favourite character would have to be Ms. Albright. She was just a character that I'm looking forward to seeing in the movie, for one, but 2, I loved her vibrant red hair and how passionate she was. She kind of is one of those characters that jumped off the page for me. She wasn't just passionate about theatre, but she was also like involved in the students' lives, and she's a bit of a badass, and I really liked her. She's kind of a close tie with Nora for me for a favourite character though. Nora is Simon's younger sister, and she's a quiet achiever, but I think that she's really grounded in herself, and she's got spunk, and I just think she's really cool. What is my favourite aspect of this book? All of it. But seriously, I think I have to go with the emails between Simon and Blue, because I have always liked books that have utilised things like emails or letters or journal entries or text conversations, because if you're finding it a bit slow, I feel like those conversations really draw your attention back and pull you back into the book and just gets you invested again. With this book, I didn't feel like I needed to get reinvested, but it certainly pulled me in more. But I just loved them so much. Especially with emails, because they provide little extra details like both of their email accounts as well as the date and the time they were sent. And I'm one of those people who look at them, those details, and compare it to the last lot of emails and like, oh, when are you sending it? Oh, okay. Oh, wait. And then I'll compare it to maybe even significant dates in my life, and I'm like, oh, that was on my birthday. That's so cool. I think I'd have to say those emails because of those little details and just the insight and the way that they convey so much of the relationship, which is, as I've already gushed about, is amazing and lovely, and I love it. Which character would I be in this book? I related to a lot of different characters in this book, which is always fun because it means that you're not really having a bias throughout. But I think I related the most to Leah, so I think I would have to say her, but mixed with maybe a little bit of Bram and Garrett. That's a bit of an interesting conversation. Interesting mix. Interesting combination. Or maybe not. I think it's interesting. But that's who I would be. A mix of those 3. What is this book similar to? I found it a little bit hard to say what exactly this book was similar to, but I would have to say that it reminded me a lot of Will Grayson, specifically John Green's Will Grayson rather than David Levithan's. Other than that, the writing style was probably similar to John Green's, a little bit of Rainbow Rowell, and maybe even Stephanie Perkins, all authors who I enjoy. What did this book inspire me to do? Simple answer, eat Oreos. I mean, I always have Oreos on hand anyway because I bloody love them, especially with peanut butter, my goodness. But Simon's favourite way to eat Oreos, or one of his favourite ways, is to make like an Oreo slush, which is basically putting Oreos in a cup and having more Oreos than milk, stronger Oreo to milk ratio sort of thing. And I tried recreating this. I don't know if I got it quite right because there are steps later on in the book which I won't refer you to because then you'll see spoilers, and I'm not doing that. But they're basically the steps that he says, and then you use a spoon and you stir it around, and because it's more Oreo than milk, you need the spoon to also eat it. And I absolutely tried doing this. I actually used a bit too much milk, so that was a bit bad, but I was like, yes, I'm making it, pouring in all the milk, and that was too much. Aside from the fact that my stomach didn't really appreciate all the dairy lactose stuff, I got all of the cream filling as like lumps in it, just in the milk, so I'm not sure if you're supposed to twist them apart and then take out the cream, or maybe that's something Simon likes. I don't know, but I'm not giving up there because I love Oreo milkshakes and I like crushing Oreos into ice cream, so I will be trying this because it sounded delicious, and I'm inspired to continue with that little quest. So that is my review of the book over, but very quickly I'm going to talk about the movie adaptation, Love, Simon. That is already out in Canada and the US and Europe, I believe, but we're not getting it in Australia until the 29th of March. So I am still looking forward to it. So I've watched the trailer, and if I hadn't read the book, it would absolutely be one of those movies that I would still be looking forward to. And so many people just watch the movies rather than reading the books, which is totally fine, but I would recommend you reading this book because it is so lovely and wonderful. As for the actors, I didn't really picture Simon while reading this book, and I don't know why that is, but having seen the trailer and seeing Nick Robinson portraying him, I'm like, oh yeah, cool, that's Simon. Except I'm wondering where his glasses go. Maybe that's just something they've taken out. We were told at the start of the book that he wears glasses because they're Harry Potter style, but yeah, I completely forgot until the play and he had to wear contacts. So Becky Albertalli has said that you will fall in love with Nick Robinson as Simon though, so I am looking forward to that. As for Leah being portrayed by Catherine Langford, who you might know from 13 Reasons Why, I think because I related to her most, I kind of pictured her the most. I think she is an excellent choice. I'm so looking forward to seeing her as Leah. And also the parents. I didn't really picture Jennifer Garner as Simon's mum, but I think she'll do a good job. I like her. And Josh Duhamel, which is not how you say his name, apparently it's Duhamel, as the dad, I think is going to be great. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the family because I focused on them, I guess. And Abby and Nick and Bram and Garrett, I can't wait to see them all come to life on the screen. I have my doubts a little bit about the movie because it looks like they've changed the storyline a little bit, but sometimes you have to do that to fit the format of film rather than book, so I'm just gonna stay open-minded about it. I am taking some kind of comfort from the fact that Becky Albertalli has actually tweeted out about the movie, and she says, I do know that you guys are gonna lose your shit over this one. It is so special. It says exactly what I wanted the book to say. It's funny and relevant and timeless and charming and honest and painful and so romantic, and there is kissing, and it is not half-assed. And you can tell that every single person involved cares deeply about this story, from the cast, the production crew to the extras. There are no words to describe how much this story comes alive under G. Berlanti's direction. He takes it to a place that I couldn't. Greg put every bit of his heart into this. You'll be able to feel it when you watch it. And so reading those has really kind of taken those doubts away from me, so that I know that Becky's worked closely with this movie and this is exactly what she wanted it to say. Overall, I am looking forward to this movie so much, and I can't wait to see the book come alive in a different format and not just reread it, even though, as I said, I will. I'm also looking forward to seeing it on the film format, on the big screen, and just enjoying it and falling in love with it all over again in a different way. Anyway, that's it for this book review. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sorry if I rambled too much, but I feel like when I've really enjoyed a book that I can sometimes trip over my own words, and even though I've made dot points, I have totally rushed to get them out and just kind of gone, ugh. So I'm sorry if I was just kind of talking really fast. I don't know, I hope it's still been enjoyable. And I do recommend that you go out and read this book if you haven't already, or if it's sitting on your to be read and you're just not sure if you're gonna like it, please give it a go because I bloody loved it. If you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you again in the next one. Bye! And at the end of 2015, it was also nominated for a Goodreads Choice Award for Best YA Fiction. One more time.